The first thing you're going to need to do when you get your bottle is to remove the label, and you can also take off the cap. We don't use the caps, but we will keep them for another project. And then you need to take a black Sharpie marker and write your initials and your period and day on the bottom of the bottle. So in this case, if you were period 3, day A, you would write 3A and then your initials. And my initials are BB. Next, you're going to remove any labels. Some labels are really easy to just peel right off, and some you might have to use a scissors. Just be careful when you're using a scissors to cut the label. And you'll see that my label didn't come off completely, and that's okay. We're actually going to be using some sandpaper to remove excess label, and we can paint right on top of it. So it's not a huge deal if you have any labels left over. Then you'll take a piece of sandpaper and you're going to sandpaper the entire bottle. The reason why we use sandpaper is because it helps the paint to stick to the plastic. The plastic comes pretty smooth and shiny, and if we put paint right on top of that smooth, shiny plastic, it's not very likely to stick. So that's why we use sandpaper to scratch up the surface and to rough up the surface so the paint sticks to the bottle. And once your bottle is no longer very shiny, then you know that you are ready. So take your time, make sure that you get most areas sanded, and then you can start painting. And you can choose any color that is at the tables, and you can just move to the table that you need and select the color that you need. And it's okay if you have some spots that look a little splotchy or if it doesn't look like it's completely covered up. We want it to be kind of transparent. So just like this is fine. And then we need to let those dry. There are two main ways to cut our painted bottles. The first one is the spiral, and the second one is the flower or star design. I'm going to start cutting this spiral by just making a small little cut on the bottom of the bottle. And it's good to use a larger scissors because they're usually a little stronger. And I'm going to cut the bottom off of this plastic bottle. We're going to recycle the bottoms of the plastic bottles. So you'll take that piece and we'll put that in the recycling bin so it doesn't get thrown into a landfill. And now you can see the inside and it looks nice, and we're going to start cutting the spiral. So to start, you need to actually start at the bottom. And if you make it very thin, it's going to be a much longer spiral. If you make it much thicker, then it's not going to be as long. It's going to be short. And you can look at the example if you're confused or you're not sure how wide to make the spiral. Mine is about 1 inch wide, and you'll notice it's fairly long. It's a medium-sized spiral. It's very important that you take your time and you don't accidentally cut off part of the bottle. That would be not such a good thing to happen. So take your time and cut all the way up to the top of the bottle. And you'll notice that it's pretty easy to hold on to the mouth of the bottle while I'm cutting. So once you get to the top, then you can stop. And so there is my spiral ready to be attached to the frame of our sculpture. And now we'll learn the star or flower design technique. This one is very similar to the spiral. We're going to cut the bottom off of the bottle. So you'll make a small cut so you can get your scissors in there and cut off the bottom. This bottle is a little tougher because it's a Coke bottle, and Coke and other pop bottles usually use a thicker plastic. So the really thin water bottles are a little easier to cut. We're going to save the bottom of that plastic bottle. And now we're going to cut straight lines. So we're not cutting a spiral, we're going to just cut straight lines right up to the top of the bottle. Again, you can make these very thin. It could be more like a flower or more like a star. If you do just a few cuts, it's going to be a lot bigger. If you do smaller cuts, it's going to look more fringy. And I'm doing some smaller cuts here. So I keep cutting all the way up to the top of the bottle. And in just a second, I'm going to show you guys what you can do to make it look more like a flower, like it has more volume. Both of these design techniques are fairly similar. They take about almost the same time, but they look different. So they have different looks. The flowers and the star designs, whichever you want to call it, those tend to be at the top of the chandelier, and the spirals tend to be at the bottom so they can hang down. So now I have my nicely cut plastic bottle with all that fringe, and now I'm going to bend back each little fringe that I made, and that's going to actually turn this into more of a flower star shape. And you'll notice as I go, it's starting to look more and more like a kind of crazy flower type thing. And you might need to crease the edge when you fold it just to keep it in that position. And there is my flower design and both of the designs together ready to be attached to the wire frame to build our Chihuly sculpture.